She was thrown out of a truck in the middle of a rainstorm, soaking wet, silent, and broken. I was just a struggling mechanic closing up for the night. I should have called the cops, but something in her eyes stopped me. I took her in, not knowing who she was or what she'd been through. I had no idea she'd changed my entire life. What started as a simple act of kindness turned into a fight for justice, healing, and something I never expected, a miracle. The first time I saw her, she wasn't moving. It was 11:47 p.m., and I was locking on my garage after another 14-hour shift, knuckles bruised, back aching, and bank account still laughing at me. The rain came down in thick sheets, drenching the dusty floor outside the shop, and that's when the headlights of an old blue pickup cut through the downpour, pulling up without warning. I didn't recognize the truck. It wasn't local. Its bumper was rusted to hell, and the engine sounded like it was begging for mercy. The man who stepped out didn't look much better, grizzled, gray, jittery. I barely had time to ask if he needed help when he opened the passenger door and dumped the girl out. Literally. She fell into the puddles with a thud. "Can't take care of her anymore," he muttered, like he was throwing away junk. "She's all yours now. You'll thank me later." "What the hell are you doing?" I stepped forward, angry and confused. "Is she hurt? Hey, you okay?" But the guy had already peeled off into the night, tires skidding over the slick gravel, taillights disappearing into the storm. I stood there, soaked, stunned, staring at the girl crumpled on the ground like a discarded doll. She didn't look more than 20. Torn jeans, a hoodie too thin for the weather, hair soaked to the scalp, arms crossed over her chest like she was trying to shield herself from the world. Her lips were trembling, but her eyes, those eyes weren't scared. They were empty. "Hey, can you hear me?" I knelt down beside her. Nothing. She didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't speak. I should have called the cops, right? Or maybe the hospital. But something about her, something deep in my gut told me she'd been through enough. So I picked her up. I didn't ask questions. I just brought her inside. The garage was cold, but at least it was dry. I grabbed one of the old blankets from the back room, the kind I usually kept for stray cats or freezing pipes, and wrapped her up. My hands shook, not because of her weight, but because I couldn't understand how someone could sell their daughter and drive off like it was nothing. "I'm Jake," I said gently, crouching down beside the couch I'd laid her on. "You don't have to talk. Just, you're safe here, all right?" Still no answer. Just the rise and fall of her breath. I warmed up a can of soup on the portable stove in the corner, poured into a chipped mug, and set it beside her. Then I left her alone. I figured she'd bolt if I stared too long. I stayed up that night, watching the door. She never tried to leave. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the silence hadn't. She was still on the couch, sitting now. Her hands were cupped around the mug of cold soup she hadn't touched. "You need food?" I asked. She blinked. Then finally a whisper. One word. "Why? Why what? Why help me?" I shrugged, suddenly aware of how tired I looked. "Because you didn't deserve that." Her name, I learned 2 days later, was Ava. And what she told me next made me want to put my fist through a wall. She'd been sold. Not trafficked. Not kidnapped. Just sold, by her own parents, to settle an old debt. A gamble her dad couldn't repay. They gave her to a man they barely knew, for a few grand and a handshake. And for weeks, she'd been treated like a thing, not a human. And somehow, she had escaped. The man in the truck, her father's friend. He was supposed to keep her in check. But she'd fought him. Every day, until he finally snapped and dumped her on the first doorstep he could find. Mine. I wanted to find the guy and bury him alive. But Ava looked at me and said, "Don't. That's not what I need. I just need to feel like a person again." So I handed her a wrench. And I said, "Then start by helping me rebuild an engine." What started as silence turned into questions. "What's this? What's that part? Why does it smell like oil all the time?" And then came the laughter. She laughed when I burned my hand on the muffler. I laughed when she dropped an entire can of bolts on my foot. And somewhere between spilled coffee, late-night music, and grease-stained hands, Ava stopped being a stranger. She became family. But the past doesn't stay buried forever. And soon it came knocking. Hard. It happened exactly 16 days after Ava moved in. Things had been good. Surprisingly good. She was starting to smile more, and the hollowness in her voice was fading. We weren't exactly living large. I was still behind on bills. My garage barely broke even. But there was something different now. Like, waking up didn't feel pointless. She'd started helping around the shop every day, changing oil, passing me tools, asking about how engines worked. She had a mind like a sponge, sharp, eager. In her presence, it filled every quiet crack in my broken life. Then came the knock. It was a Saturday evening, storm clouds brewing again, and we just closed shop early to grab burgers from the joint across the street. I was wiping grease from my hands when 3 hard, heavy knocks rattled the shop door. I opened it and froze. 2 men in black jackets, big, clean-shaven, sunglasses, even though the sky outside was gray. I'd seen guys like this before when repo agents came to take my tools last year. But these men didn't want tools. They wanted Ava. "We're here for the girl," the taller one said. Cold, robotic, like Ava was a thing, not a person. My gut clenched. "She's not here." I lied. "Who the hell are you?" "Doesn't matter," the shorter one replied. "What matters is that she was paid for, and the buyer wants her back." I stepped fully into the doorway. My blood boiled. "She's not a car, man. She's not yours. Get the hell off my property." They looked at each other, then back at me. The taller one smirked. "You think this is over? We'll be back." I locked every door, every window, turned off every light. Inside, Ava was already shaking. "They found me," she whispered. I thought I lost them." "Who are they, Ava?" Her voice cracked. "My dad owed money to a man named Vince Carlo. Not just debt, dirty money. Vince doesn't forget. He said if my dad couldn't pay, he'd take me instead." I stared at her, stunned. "And your dad just gave you away?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence said it all. Over the next few days, I made changes. I borrowed money I didn't have to install cameras. Reinforced the back door. Slept with a crowbar under my bed. Ava stayed inside. The sparkle in her eyes dulled again. But I wasn't going to let her go back to that life. Not while I was still breathing. And that's when I had an idea. Crazy, maybe stupid, but one that could shift everything. There was this project car in my garage. A 1968 Mustang Fastback. Rusted. Beaten to hell. I'd been meaning to restore it for years, but never had time or money. I pulled the tarp off. "Ava," I said, "we're going to fix this car together. And when it's done, we're going to sell it. Start over. Somewhere far. Clean slate. You with me?" She looked at me, confused, hesitant. Then slowly, she nodded. "I'm with you, Jake." So we worked. Sunrise to sundown. Cutting metal. Replacing wires. Sanding rust. Painting panels. The garage echoed with music and laughter and sometimes tears, but always healing. It wasn't just a car we were rebuilding. We were rebuilding us. Ava found herself again in those greasy hours. She told me she used to dream of studying engineering before her parents crushed it out of her. That cars made her feel in control. That this Mustang was becoming her miracle. But Vince Carlo didn't disappear. He sent a warning. A smashed window one morning. A note left on the hood. "She's mine. This isn't over." I wanted to burn his world down. But Ava said something that stopped me cold. "We fight smart, Jake. Not angry. The thing is, Ava wasn't just strong. She was brilliant. And the revenge she had in mind wouldn't just protect us. It would expose Vince. Ava didn't want revenge through fists. She wanted justice, the kind that would sting in places fists couldn't reach. We sat under the soft hum of the garage lights that night, her face lit by the screen of my old, busted laptop. Grease smeared on her cheek, eyes sharper than I'd ever seen. "He deals in laundering," she said. "Gambling fronts, fake businesses, offshore accounts. But here's what I found. He's tied to an illegal title-flipping scam. Car titles. Stolen vehicles cleaned and sold." "You sure?" I asked, skeptical but impressed. She turned the laptop toward me. I didn't understand all the financial jargon, but the connections were there. Paper trails leading back to fake auctions and forged bills of sale. And one thing stood out. He was using girls. Young girls. Lost ones. Like Ava. Not just as bargaining chips, but as silent workers, forced to sign papers and front ghost businesses. She was supposed to be one of them, but she escaped. We spent the next week building a plan. Ava called it the reversal. She'd pretend to comply, reach out to Vince, say she'd changed her mind, that she'd come back. And while he smiled and gloated, thinking he'd won, we'd feed the FBI everything. I didn't want her to do it. The thought of her talking to that monster again made me sick. But she was firm. "If I run again, he'll do this to another girl," she said. "I can't let that happen." There was a fire in her now, A steady, righteous burn. I'd never been prouder. The night she made the call, I stood by the window with my heart in my throat. She kept it simple, calm, her voice steady, too steady. I messed up, she told him. I want to come back. Just don't hurt Jake. He doesn't know anything. Vince bought it. Of course he did. Arrogant men always think they've won before the war even starts. He told her to meet him in 2 days. In the meantime, we contacted an old friend of mine, Tanner Briggs, ex-cop turned mechanic, who owed me from a dark time in my life. He didn't ask questions, just listened. When Ava showed him the files she'd compiled, he whistled low. This could sink him, Tanner said, but we'll need the right agent, not just any badge. He called someone from his former precinct, Special Agent Naomi Fields. Tough, no nonsense. The kind of woman who didn't blink when Ava handed her the USB drive. She just said, "We'll be there. Stay out of sight till then." The night before the meeting, Ava sat in the Mustang with the engine off, staring at the windshield like it held all her ghosts. "You think I'm crazy?" she asked. I leaned against the driver's side, arms crossed. "I think you're braver than anyone I've ever met." She smiled faintly. "I was nothing when I came here. Just broken." "No," I said. "You were lost. But you found yourself. That's not nothing. That's a miracle." She looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, tears fell not from fear, but from release. "Thanks for being the one person who didn't treat me like I was disposable." I blinked hard. "I'd take you in all over again. Every damn time." The next day, she walked into Vince's warehouse, wearing a wire, surrounded by federal eyes hiding in vans, warehouses, cars. I watched from a screen with Agent Fields beside me. Jake, the grease-stained nobody, now part of a federal sting. Vince smiled his usual snake smile when he saw her. "I knew you'd come back," he said, cocky, disgusting. "Smart girl. Now let's talk business." She played her part, sat across from him, let him talk. And boy, did he talk. He bragged, rambled, exposed everything. And right before he signed his next fake title in front of her, asterisk, FBI, on the ground, lights, guns, chaos, and Ava. She didn't flinch. They arrested Vince and 6 of his top guys. The warehouse was full of files, stolen IDs, money, and girls. 3 girls locked in the back room. We got there just in time. The headlines the next morning read, "Underground car laundering ring busted thanks to brave survivor." But that didn't tell the whole story. It didn't say how one girl, thrown away by everyone who should have protected her, became the reason others were saved. It didn't say how she changed my life, how she became my everyday miracle. After the bust, things didn't go back to normal, because there was no normal anymore. Ava's story had spread like wildfire across town, then beyond. A local reporter named Rachel Grant came by the shop, polite and persistent, asking for a survivor side of the story. Ava refused at first. "I'm not a victim," she told me. "I'm just someone who got out." But a week later, she changed her mind. "I want girls to know they can get out," she said. "Even if the world throws them away, there's still good people left. Like you." That interview aired 3 nights later. And that's when everything changed. People started stopping by the garage, not for oil changes or tire rotations. They came to see Ava. Young women, lost looking, quiet, some with bruises that hadn't faded, others with stories they couldn't put into words. They'd just sit, watch her work, ask about engines, about tools, about how she did it. She never turned one away. She'd say, "I don't have all the answers, but I'll teach you what I know." Soon, would have been a busted garage in the middle of nowhere, turned into a place of healing. We called it the rebuild room. A corner of the garage we cleaned out, painted over, and stocked with spare parts. Ava would lead mini workshops, teaching girls how to change oil, swap brake pads, rebuild their confidence along with carburetors. She didn't need permission. She didn't ask for money. She just showed up every day. And for the first time in years, I started showing up, too, not just to work, but to life. But healing others doesn't mean you're healed yourself. And one night, when the shop was empty and the lights buzzed soft and low, Ava found me sitting on the back step, hands shaking around a beer I hadn't even opened. "You okay?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "You know why I didn't call the cops that night I found you?" She waited. "I used to be like your dad." Ava blinked. Quiet. Still, I didn't sell anyone. But I wasn't a good man. I drank. I fought. I lost my wife because I thought pride was more important than people. I let my brother take the fall for a crime we both did, and I never said a word. I was just angry. All the time. Her voice was barely above a whisper. So what changed? You did, I said. The day you showed up, broken and silent, and still fought harder than I ever did. You made me want to fix more than just engines. She sat beside me. No judgment. No pity. Just a presence. And then she leaned her head on my shoulder. Then maybe, she said, we saved each other. We didn't say anything after that. The silence wasn't empty. It was earned. Months passed. We got funding from a small nonprofit that heard about the rebuild room. They sent us equipment, safety gear, and even helped sponsor a community program we started called Fix Her Future. Ava ran the classes. I handled the shop. And together, we built something bigger than bolts and machines. We built belonging. And then came a letter. From her mother. Ava hadn't spoken of her since the beginning. As far as she was concerned, both her parents were ghosts. But the letter was real. Written in shaky cursive. Ava, I know I don't deserve a response. I know I helped destroy you. But I've been sober for 7 months. And every day I live with what I allowed. I heard about what you're doing. And I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I never was before. Mom. Ava didn't cry. But she didn't throw the letter away, either. She folded it, tucked it into her back pocket, and went back to work. You ever gonna respond? I asked her later that week. Not yet, she said. But maybe someday. Then she looked at me. I don't need her apology to keep going. I've already got what I need. What's that? She smiled. You. 3 months later, Ava stood at the garage entrance with a letter in her hand. Again. But this time, it wasn't from her past. It was her future knocking. She'd been offered a full scholarship to a top automotive engineering school in Chicago. One of the girls she'd helped had secretly nominated her. You deserve more, the girl said. You helped me believe I could be something. Now it's your turn. Ava was stunned. I was proud. And terrified. That night, she found me tightening a bolt that didn't really need tightening. You okay? She asked. I shrugged. You should go. She stepped closer. You don't sound happy. I'm happy for you, I said. Just not ready to let go. She reached out, placed a hand over mine. You don't have to let go. I'm not leaving you behind. I'm just moving forward. I looked at her. This girl who once couldn't speak, now standing strong, fearless. You changed everything, Ava, I said. She smiled. So did you. She left 2 weeks later, but not before repainting the old sign out front. Rebuild garage, where broken things come back stronger. And beneath it, smaller, founded by Jake and Ava. She calls every Sunday. We talk about engines, life, and the new girl she's helping on campus. The garage still runs. I still fix cars. But I also teach now, using the curriculum Ava wrote before she left. The place is never quiet. That's how she'd want it. And every time I turn a wrench or wipe my hands on my jeans, I think of the girl who was left behind in a storm and became the reason I wake up smiling. Every single day.